Hello, I'm Linda Ann at Studio ABC. I'm a design team member for Paverpol USA. It's an amazing product that you can use to make three-dimensional art. Today I'm going to try using wire form sparkle mesh to make an eagle with Paverpol. I don't really want it terribly three-dimensional, but I do want something to go over an area in my studio where I have several eagles and feathers. I just need something to finish it out, so that's what I'm working on today. I've actually never worked with this wire mesh before, so we'll see how things turn out. I haven't brought everything to my studio yet, so I have some wrapping paper in my studio that I'm going to try making a pattern on. It's a little doggy print, and if you know my story about my studio right now, it used to be a puppy parlor where they washed dogs, and I have had my share of puppy hair, so I'm getting rid of this kind of wrapping paper. It tends to curl up on me, so I keep taping it down to the table. And I have drawn an eagle, and now I'm going to try cutting this out and transfer it to the wire mesh. Cutting out this pattern is proving to be a lot more challenging than I expected. I didn't expect it to be challenging any place except around the feet and the claws, because most of it is just sheer smooth lines. But because it's curling, as you see, and the tape keeps coming loose, it really is challenging. I have tried everything to rub this backwards on the table and various methods to get it not to curl, but it's bound and determined it's going to. So I'm just coping with it. Just another thing that you have to do in the name of art. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of cut away some of the excess now so that I won't have quite so much paper to deal with. You can see what a nuisance this is with the curling as I try to cut, and I started off to use brown paper bags, but it wasn't quite large enough. If I had this to do over, I would go with the brown paper bags and tape them together to make the pattern, because see, this is just a pain. I'm not sure how much detail I'm going to be able to get on these little claws at the bottom, but I'm going to go ahead and cut them out of the pattern the way I want them to look, and then I'll deal with it later if I'm not able to get the detail on the wire mesh that I want. So finally my pattern is all ready, and I'm taping it down to the wire mesh so that it won't curl on me as I'm cutting. They say that you can cut, on the package it says you can cut this wire mesh with scissors. It seems a little heavy to me for that, but that's what I'm going to try. I can see the edges of my pattern right through the tape, so it's not a problem if I go over some of the details with the tape. And I'm surprised to find out just how easily this does cut with scissors. Just like the package says, just cut it with scissors. I'm not using my best scissors. I don't think it would hurt my best scissors too much. But if I look like I'm chopping here, it's because my scissors are of bad quality, not because the wire mesh is difficult to cut. Very simple. I'll be using the bronze-colored Paverpol for this project. It comes in this little container. You have to remove a tab on the side to open it up, but then the top just pulls open after you remove the tab. And I try to keep it sealed while I'm working, just pour out just enough that I'm going to work with and keep the rest of it sealed. I have this inexpensive plastic shoebox type container that I'm going to pour my Paverpol into. And right here is the little connection that I was talking about earlier. This little tab that you have to pull off. I'm using my scissors to get under it so I don't have to break my fingernails. And then just, it pulls off easily. And you kind of expect it to go all the way around the package, but it doesn't. Once that is pulled away, let me get it next to my body, so there we go. Okay, once that is pulled away, the top pulls off very easily. You just pull up. Now, if you look at the inside, it's real milky and real thin on the top. Try to use it this way. You won't get the bronze color, and it's just not mixed up yet. Even when I tried to shake the container to mix it up, there wasn't enough room in the container for it to shake up. So I'm using a regular paint stick to mix it up. I put it inside this so I wouldn't spill it every place, but I'm not sure you can see it. So I want you to see the consistency. There it is. The thickness is all in the bottom and then that thin on the top. So what you have to do is stir that to combine it. And it shouldn't be lumpy or thin. It should be a nice, just even consistency. Once it's thoroughly stirred and blended together, I will be pouring some of it into this shoebox container because this is a nice area, open area where I can get to it, and the rest of it will be protected by sealing it up so that it doesn't dry out in the container. So I only pour out just what I think I'm going to need. And so this looks just about right. I'm going to pour some into my container. I don't need a whole lot. And I'll get the drips off the side and seal it all back up. Before I start to work with Paverpol, I change my clothes into something that I don't mind if it gets on there. And I add gloves. Notice I don't have any jewelry on now. I took off all my rings, and I will be able to get that off my hands if I get some on there, especially if you catch it quickly. But I'm going to be spending some time on this, and it'll be drying on my hands, and it's a little harder to peel off then. Not terribly hard. You can run your hands under warm water, and with some soapy water you can get it right off pretty well, but I don't want to go through that process. I just want the gloves. Also, if you do happen to get it on your jewelry, it can generally be removed if it's not too intricate, but you risk the possibility of it loosening the stones if you're pulling on that Paverpol. Okay, so just a few precautions there. And I'm going to start applying the Paverpol. Oh, this is a Paverpol product also. It's called Stockinette, and it is wonderful for making anything you want to make, just about. It's 100% cotton, which means it absorbs the Paverpol quite efficiently. And I'm just dipping it in now, and then I'll pull it up and I'll wring it out. And I have my wire mesh on top of some parchment paper, which is also on top of some plastic. I just thought it might show up better if I put the parchment paper under it. I'm not sure that you're able to see the wire form that well. Anyway, this is so easy. The one thing I like about Stockinette, it is so easy to pull out and pull apart whenever it gets on it laps up on itself. When you're using t-shirt material, I love t-shirt material to use too, but when you're using an old t-shirt, it's a little harder. It tends to curl up, but this doesn't curl up nearly as bad, and it's much easier to uncurl it when it does. So I'm putting it on the front, bringing it to the back, and I'm going to cover the entire piece in this same manner. Since both the stockinette and the wire mesh are an open weave, I'm kind of anxious to see what results this is going to give. It looks solid when I'm putting it on there in most places, but I'm not sure. We'll just see what happens. I love to experiment in art, and this gives me a lot of experimentation. If what I decide to do is actually what I do end up doing on this eagle, the backside's not going to make much difference, but I'm smoothing it out a bit, making it come together, and when I pick it up, it comes loose a little bit on the front side, but I'm not going to worry too much about that because it's easy to pull right back into place. Now, the places where you'll have the most problem will be in areas that, like a V between the wings, and so you'll need to take your scissors and cut that V so that you can lap it on both sides. Maybe I'll be able to show you that in just a moment. I tend to go a little bit slow with my Paverpol, trying to get a little more perfection than probably I need. And that can be a problem because as it dries on your gloves begin to stick to everything. So you should work as quickly as possible. Now you see that little hole up there at the top? I'm going to clip that. I just happened to have a hole in it because I started cutting the stockinette in the wrong place. But I'm going to clip that in a minute because it goes down into one of those little V's that I was talking about. That needs to come down so that the wings have a V shape instead of a U shape at the top. You may have seen me dip my glove into the Paverpol earlier when it wasn't sticking well to the frame. Okay, so let's tackle that hole up here. And let's turn this under first. But you can always add a little Paverpol where you need to. Just dab your finger in and put it where it needs to go. I really want to try this wire mesh with Paverpol later on a more three-dimensional project, but I like to play with it kind of on one dimension at first. Now you see, there's where I'm cutting, and I'm going to cut that right down into the V later of those wings. Here I go. Cut, cut, cut. And so when you have that inverted V shape into the wings, well, I don't know that it's an inverted V. It's a V shape that goes down into your pattern. This is what you need to do, is to cut it and then turn it under so that you won't have a lot of extra fabric at the top. And any place I need to, that's what I do. Cut it, pull it to the back. This is the back side I'm on. And put it in place. And I'm smoothing it out as much as I can, but my gloves are getting kind of sticky. I should have worked just a little faster, perhaps. The best solution for this would be just to change gloves. Just pull these off and put on a new pair. But my gloves are in the back in the storeroom under a box, under something, and my studio's still in progress, so I'm going to try to make it through this project with the gloves that I have on. So it's okay if the stockinette laps over each other. Just keep cutting and pulling and applying and make it work. 2 layers are fine. More than 2 layers are fine. And I'm kind of anxious to see what this will look like when it dries, because the last time I used bronze, I apparently did not stir it up enough, and the bronze looked a little more brown than it looked bronze. It didn't have that metallic effect that I wanted. So I did a good job of stirring this time. Sure enough, on this wire mesh, some of the details were lost because I could not really get the details I wanted on the claws, and the beak ended up losing the point off of it because, you know, it's loose wire in there, just like screen wire. So when I cut it, it wasn't necessarily stable. But I'm going to try tomorrow, after this dries to a leather hard stage, try cutting the shapes I want. We'll see what tomorrow brings. Paverpol is usually not dry when you think it's dry. You'll think, oh, well, it's not going to get completely stiff and hard. Well, it does, but it takes a few days for that to happen. You'll think that it's completely dry and it'll be kind of leathery and flexible, but in a few more days, it won't be leathery and flexible at all. I kind of twisted an area on his beak to make it pointed. It's up in the upper left-hand corner there. And this doesn't look a whole lot like an eagle right now, but it will when I get finished. For tonight, I'm going to turn out the lights in the studio, go home and get a good rest, let this have some drying time, and I'll be back to finish it tomorrow. Okay, all dry, and the first thing I notice is a huge color change. All of that milky white has gone away, and I have the bronze color here. And he looks pretty doggone good. I did knock away on the edges when I pulled him off of the parchment paper. I knocked away some of the edges that had stuck to him, kind of like glue sticking out on the edges. But otherwise, he's looking good. I'm ready to proceed to the next step. I'm feeling like I need more definition in this, so I'm going to use this yarn, which is of a cotton fiber, and it should absorb the Paverpol well. It's green, but I don't think that'll make a difference after I dip it into the bronze Paverpol. And if a little green shows through, it's not a huge deal. I'm going to start by cutting pieces and laying on here, kind of like drawing with string. I did take a pencil and draw out some major lines to remind myself where I want the major movement to be in this. After I had this all laid out, I looked at it and thought something's missing, and I realized I need to paint that head and the tail areas white. That will really give it more of a eagle appearance. And since this is going to be a bald eagle, that's what I'm going to do. I'll just lay the strings back and paint in the areas that I want to paint. I'm beginning with one of the pearl paints from COLOURARTE'S. But as I apply this, I'm beginning to wonder if this is the correct choice. I'm not sure that I like this after all. I'll go ahead and apply it and then probably go over it with another coat of something else that is a little more opaque. Okay, so let's switch paints to something more opaque. This is an opaque flat white from COLOURARTE'S, and it's covering better, and I think will give a better effect. Now, when I start to lay that string back around this, I'm probably going to meet some challenges because it'll probably, the string dipped in the Paverpol, I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to be able to control the Paverpol coming off of that, and I'm kind of messy anyway, so it'll probably need a touch-up after I'm finished, but this will give a nice base. The head is all done. I'm moving down to the tail part. Same thing here. I pulled off the yarn, and I'm just painting in this tail. And again, these yarns are going to be dipped in Paverpol, so when I do that, it's going to have bronze on top of this white. And I'll go back and correct that when it happens. If it happens, I'm pretty sure it will. My next attempt will be to dip this yarn into the Paverpol and then place it like one piece at a time. But I'm pretty sure that my gloves are going to start sticking to the yarn. This is very lightweight to pick up, and that's just one of the things that you cope with. So if I don't get the lines exactly the way I had them, that's fine as long as they look, I've got an idea going here. And here it is all dipped, and I'm leaving some in place, but kind of moving them back out of the way as I work. As you can already see, this yarn that I have dipped in the Paverpol has completely changed colors. There's a little green showing through here and there. No big deal. And I try to pick up one at a time, but I'm pretty sure when I get to those little tiny pieces that it's just going to be a hit and miss thing. I have some drips here and there, and I don't want those to show up as texture. I don't like the looks of those. They're not the right kind of texture on this. So I'm going to take a brush, and I'm going to rub those out, smooth them out, and then when that dries, it should blend right in with everything else. But I just don't want those little dots and drips to show up as texture on my eagle. I've come along pretty nicely with this, but as I suspected, those little ones got in the way, so I moved them all off, and I'm soaking all of them in the Paverpol all at one time. Also, if you'll look at that tail, my predictions are pretty true. There's definitely some areas that will have to be touched up because I have Paverpol drips in the tail, and I'll need to go back over those with white once it's all dry. The smaller areas definitely tried my patience because the gloves were Paverpol's beginning to dry on my gloves. And so the biggest solution for that is just to take your gloves off and get a new pair of gloves. Because once that starts drying, everything you touch wants to stick to the glove. But I persevered through most of this as far as I could before I changed gloves. I really think these textures are going to add an awful lot to my final eagle. So here's what he looks like while he's still wet. I'll let that dry and I'll come back and finish all the details. It's all dry and I've touched up the the brown spots that were on the white areas. And I'm pretty well satisfied with the way he looks. He's going to look really good with the grouping of other eagles that I have in my studio. Thank you for watching.